Hi there and welcome along to Fenton Elliott Solicitors. I'm Chris Sutton. I'm here with Simon Fenton, head of the employment law team. And I want to talk today, Simon, if I can, about TUPE. So buying a business. What then happens with the employees? Do I have to take all of them? Can I get rid of the dead wood? What are the rules?
Well, the rules are set out in the Transfer of Undertakings, brackets, Protection of Employment, close brackets, regulations, abbreviated commonly as TUPE, T-U-P-E, not TUPE or any of the other weird pronunciations you get from time to time. This is a pretty simple concept, right? If you work for a company and somebody else takes over, you should be able to carry on working in the same way, in the same process. It used to be, before these regulations came in from Europe, when we were part of the EU, that a new company takes over, it's a new contract, you cease to be an employee. They said that can't be right. You're an innocent bystander here. Your employer changes, so you should be able to be protected. It's fine, right? That makes perfect sense. The way it's developed is enormously complicated because it depends in the first place whether you're buying the shares of a business or the assets of a business. Okay, so let me clarify. If you buy the shares of a business, so an employee works for ABC Limited, and ABC Limited's shares are bought by somebody else. As an employee, I'm still working for ABC Limited. There's no change. Yes. That's not a TUPE transaction. If the company is buying the business and it's changing, or they're buying part of the business and you're transferring into another company, that would be a transfer of undertaking, and you're protected. And what you get is an entitlement to have the same contract on exactly the same terms. Now, if your terms of employment are different from the terms of employment of all the other people who work at the business that you've now been parachuted into, you've got two-tier employees. If your company is acquisitive and buys a business every 6 months, you've got a whole bunch of different employees on different contracts, with different pension arrangements and different holiday entitlements, and some have dental health and some don't, and some have 28 days holiday and some have 40 days holiday. And
I could see that getting really complicated.
Really complicated, and employers want to. Well, can I just? I want them all the same, or we're buying this bit of the business because we think we can run it more efficiently. So we don't need all the employees. That's when it gets complicated. Now, the thing about the rules is that they prescribe how you need to consult and notify, that kind of stuff. They also set out what the consequences are if you don't do it. And that could be up to 13 weeks gross pay per employee, simply for not talking to them about it.
Wow.
While they stay in employment, right? You've got 100 people who are transferring over. You didn't consult them properly. 13 weeks pay, basically 3 months pay per employee, and you're no further ahead. That's meant to be an incentive to follow the rules. And the rules have lots of anti-avoidance provisions, meaning you can't get around it. If it looks like TUPE and it sounds like TUPE and it squeaks like TUPE, it's TUPE. And people say, well, can't we just agree it's not TUPE? It's like agreeing that gravity doesn't work. Whether you agree with me that gravity doesn't work doesn't mean gravity doesn't work.
Okay.
So you're bound by these rules whether you like it or not.
So this is affecting anyone buying a business that already has employees in place?
Well, if you're buying a business, yes. If you're buying shares, not so much, right? And so that's always the first question. What kind of transaction is this? But it's always a good idea to ask a lawyer, unless you're familiar with how this works, to ask a lawyer or somebody who's involved in the sale of the business whether it applies. And if it does apply, what are the consequences, and can we avoid it? And if we do avoid, it, what's the natural result of that?
So let's say you've bought a business and you've taken on some of the employees, but there's one or two, or perhaps that you're approaching it from a point of view, you want to streamline that new acquisition. You want one or two employees you want to be moving on. Is this then becoming a normal redundancy process? Or is there something linked with TUPE that you can do?
So if somebody is dismissed in consequence of a transfer of undertaking, it's automatically unfair unless it is for a reason which is set out in statute, which might be okay. So that's sort of one thing. What I would always suggest in these circumstances is it's better if you can transfer them over and then make them redundant. Because if you've got 3 people in accounts and you already have a perfectly good accounts team and you don't need them, if you dismiss them beforehand, you're at risk of an automatic unfair dismissal relating to TUPE. So bring them over, go through a redundancy process with all of your existing employees and the new ones. You never know, you might find that 1 or 2 of the new ones are better than the ones you've got, right? Put them in a pool for selection, go through a standard redundancy process. That's okay. You can do that. Okay. So that would be one way of dealing with it. But what often happens is, I advise a selling company and the buying company says, I don't want them, you've got to deal with them. You've got to deal with them. And that's when it gets a bit fraught. The other thing, of course, is that in the sale and purchase agreement, you can deal with this. I will take them on in my new company, but you, the seller, will pay the redundancy costs that I end up paying as a result of going through this process. That's usually the subject of negotiations. It's quite easy to get wrong. It's always a good idea to take advice on it, and they're always different. They're all different. And
this is about working the advice together, not only with anyone who's advising on the commercial acquisition, so a company or a commercial lawyer, but then also talking to someone like you or any of the members of your team about how the TUPE interacts with that purchase.
Yeah. So we act for a couple of firms of accountants, and the accountants will be perfectly competent, generally speaking, about my clients anyway, at doing all the commercial side and the liabilities and what we're buying and all this kind of stuff. This is the bit they come and take advice on. So I would advise them as clients to handle the rest of it, but let us advise you on this. Other clients will need teams of lawyers acting for them, both sides.
Okay, so business sales and acquisitions can also lead to employment law issues. So if you're involved in any form of business sale or acquisition and you think there might be some TUPE issues that need addressing, reach out to Simon and his team at Fenton Elliott Solicitors.